This is All India Radio. In the program Insights, now we bring a discussion on proposed amendments to IT Rules 2021. The participants are Pawan Duggal, IT and Cyber Expert, and Omvesh Upadhyay, AIR Correspondent.
The Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology proposed amendments to the IT Rules 2021 in January 2023 to bring updated regulation in online gaming industry, and it is also seen as government's step towards dealing with the menace of fake news in the country. For now, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology extended the time period for public consultation on regulations for online gaming platforms till the 25th January of this year. Notably, the rules were published as draft amendments in the IT Rules 2021 after the Centre appointed the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology as the nodal ministry to oversee online gaming industry. Today, to discuss on this, we are joined by Mr. Pawan Duggal. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Sir, to begin the discussion, I would like to start it with a very general question, and I want to know your opinion on this in very detail. Is that how do you see the proposal of draft amendment in IT Rules 2021?
The proposal to amend the IT Rules 2021, by virtue of which the aspects pertaining to online gaming are sought to be added, is a step that's been wanting to be taken for the last many years. This is so because online gaming as an ecosystem has been rapidly developing in the Indian context. More and more Indians are now today getting addicted to and habituated of these online games. But till now, these online games has been a completely unregulated sector. There are no specific rules and regulations in this regard. The government has still not passed any dedicated law on online gaming at the central level. Also, the Information Technology Act 2000, which is India's mother legislation to deal with data and information in the electronic form, also does not deal with online gaming. So the government had two alternatives. One, it could come up with a distinctive, dedicated new legal framework on online gaming. And the second could be just bring through secondary legislation some regulation of online gaming stakeholders. So the government has chosen to adopt the second scenario, which is that they have suggested draft amendments to the Information Technology Rules 2021, which were earlier amended in October 2022. Now, as a result of these amendments, the government is now seeking to regulate the online gaming ecosystem by regulating the intermediaries and the service providers who are providing such kind of online platforms and games. The purpose is that since ultimately it's these very service providers and intermediaries that are the repository of humongous volumes of data, that effectively are the platforms where people come and do these various kinds of online gaming activities, the government has chosen to go to the route of the draft rules under the IT Act, under Section 87 of the IT Act. Under the IT Act, which is India's mother legislation to deal with everything electronic, power has been given to the government under Section 87 of the IT Act to specify various parameters of due diligence to be followed by intermediaries. Mind you, intermediaries was a new concept that had come into the IT Act by virtue of the amendments that were implemented by virtue of the Information Technology Amendment Act 2008. Earlier in the year 2000, the IT Act had only talked about network service providers and was very limited in its scope and applicability. But now, with 2008 amendments coming in, the concept of intermediary came in, which is a very, very broad concept. Today, when I read Section 21W of the Information Technology Act 2000, I find that this particular section is so broad enough to cover almost every kind of service provider. It says the intermediary with respect to any particular electronic record means any person who on behalf of another person receives, stores or transmits any particular electronic records or provides any service with respect to those records, and include network service providers, internet service providers, web hosting companies, online auction portals, online payment sites, online merchant places, and also even search engines per se. So clearly, when you are playing an online game or you're engaging in online gaming activity, you're all doing it on a platform. Now, since that platform services are provided by a particular service provider, the government has sought to regulate those very service providers. So a couple of key thrust areas have been characterized in the new proposed draft amendment. Number one, the government has said that first and foremost, the concept of intermediary includes the concept of online gaming intermediary or service providers who are providing online gaming initiatives. It's important to note that under Section 79 of the Information Technology Act 2000, intermediaries are by and large not made liable for third-party data or information made available by them, provided they can show that they have exercised due diligence while discharging their obligations under the law. The government has been given the power to stipulate various parameters of due diligence. Now, in the context of online gaming intermediaries, the government, by means of these proposed amendments, are seeking to elaborate and elucidate some of the important thrust areas of due diligence that are required to be done by the online gaming intermediary. So the good things good. First is that gone ahead and for the first time the proposed amendments have given a legal definition of the term online game. And it's defined as a game which is offered on the internet and accessible by a user through a computer resource. If such user makes a deposit or commits to make a deposit in cash or in kind with an expectation to win a prize in cash or in kind, distributed or intended to be distributed to such user based on the performance of the user and the rules of such online game. And further, they've gone ahead and defined online gaming intermediary as an intermediary that offers one or more than one online game. In addition, the proposed draft amendments have also stipulated certain additional compliances which have to be mandatorily done by online gaming intermediaries. Further, the service providers are now mandated to inform their users of all the policies that are currently being made available on their platform, including policies for refund or withdrawal of users' deposits, policy for distribution of winnings, and other fees and charges that are payable by users, as also inform ultimate users about the risk of financial loss and associated addiction.
Indeed. I also want to understand from you, if I'm not wrong, under the Part 2 due diligence by intermediaries, it so mentions that an appropriate government agency that stays authorized to check online news content. And in this context, Mr. Duggal, does the proposed amendment also have far-reaching efforts when it comes to censorship of news items? Because recently we have witnessed confusing and false narratives spreading like wildfire, ultimately creating chaos in public. Is the proposed amendment likely to curb fake news as well?
Well, you will have to look at the proposed amendments in a holistic approach.
Okay.
When I look at the entire proposed amendments, I don't find any particular element of an online censorship or online control that the government wants to have. In fact, the government has actually said that this entire online gaming ecosystem needs to have a self-regulatory body. It can be one, it can be more than one self-regulatory bodies for the online gaming industry. Now, these will have to be registered with the central government, primarily because the central government needs to know what all kinds of bodies are working on a self-regulation basis. And once these self-regulatory bodies are set up, then they will be the registering authorities with whom the online gaming intermediaries will have to register their each and every online game that's going to offer to them. So I don't really see this entire proposed amendments of registration of online games with a self-regulatory body as tantamounting to censorship. It's just nothing but a very healthy practice. In fact, the government, by this approach, is effectively telling the online gaming industry that, sir, we are not interested to come in and regulate with a heavy hand. We want you to take over this space. Why don't you, as an online gaming ecosystem industry, come in and do self-regulation on your behalf? The only thing we want from our side is that whatever self-regulating bodies that you are actually going to come up with, please have them registered with the government and let them go ahead and give you the respective registrations to online games.
Indeed, even if I recall Minister of State for Electronics and Information Technology, Mr. Chandrasekhar's statement, he was saying that the online gaming industry is a very important piece when we talk about the startup ecosystem in India. You are talking about the grievance redressal mechanism and the self-regulating authority. What significance does this hold at current time?
Currently, we are finding a unique kind of a policy vacuum. Today, when I play an online gaming activity or an online game and I lose, I don't have any clarity as to what was the basis on the basis of which I lost. There's no transparency. There's no accountability. These service providers don't tell me anything. And I see every reason that these entire manipulations could be happening at the back end. And also there's no accountability. So we have been seeing cases where people get addicted to online games. They'll end up spending their entire lifetime savings on these online games. They lose their money and then they have no effective remedies. So that's the particular reason why the government has said that as an online gaming ecosystem stakeholder or an intermediary, have in place appropriate grievance officer, appropriate client compliance officer, appropriate nodal officer who's going to go ahead and interact with the government. Also have in place a detailed grievance redressal mechanism so that every user of your online game is sensitized and knows what is his legal remedies that are available to him in the he has some grievance and how he can get his said grievance to be appropriately redressed. Now, the grievance officer has to be located in India. The grievance officer has to follow grievance redressal mechanism that the online gaming intermediary has to develop. And there is a time-bound frame within which grievance officer has to go ahead and redress the grievances of the concerned users. So the ultimate objective is very clear. The government wants effective remedies to be provided to users of online games who till now have been taken in by a huge ride. There's no accountability. And by these proposed amendments, the intermediaries are now being forced to be more transparent, more accountable, and more responsible vis-a-vis what their activities are, how they are going ahead and conducting such kinds of online games, and how they can give far more sense of comfort and satisfaction to the user that this is not a wild west. There's a proper legal framework in which they operate, and should somebody have any problem, they could resort to a grievance.
So, Mr. Duggal, can we say that from now on, after the implementation of this amendment, we can say that betting and wagering will be monitored and curbed?
I don't think betting and wagering will be curbed. These proposed amendments are only baby steps towards a right direction, which is that a sector that felt that it was above the law, it had no accountability, is for the first time being asked to say, sir, you are now an intermediary, you comply with due diligence parameters that are given under the IT Rules 2021. Please also comply with additional compliances for the context of online gaming ecosystem. But merely providing these provisions are not going to be of help, primarily because the current proposed amendments do not have adequate, effective provisions for effective implementation of the law. What happens if the online gaming intermediaries outside India? Now, what kind of penal action can be taken? That's something that's not relatively very clear. Although Rule 7 of the IT Rules 2021 does say that in such a scenario, the said company, being an intermediary, will lose its statutory exemption from legal liability as an intermediary, and further, they are liable to be punished for offences under the IT Act and the Indian Penal Code. But who's prosecuting whom? And what happens if the service provider is located outside India? What kind of real effective remedies can you provide to your ultimate users? These are some of the very important issues which will have to be appropriately addressed. My personal belief is that this entire ecosystem is getting so big of online gaming in India that mere secondary legislation by means of the proposed amendments to the IT Rules 2021 may not be sufficient. The time has come that India will have to have a dedicated new legal framework only on online gaming ecosystem. Because right now, you're only seeking to redress or deal with the activities of online gaming intermediaries. What happens to a variety of other activities that happen in the online gaming ecosystem? What happens about the rights, duties, and responsibilities of various users of online games? What happens about the various criminal activities and cyber crimes that get taken place in the context of the online gaming ecosystem? And what and how to deal with the entire issue of cybersecurity breaches in the context of online gaming ecosystem? For all those things, we will have to have a new legislation. But till such time that legislation comes across as a stopgap arrangement, these proposed amendments have been proposed. They are good step, right step in the right direction, but they are not necessarily very comprehensive. They are not going to really serve the needs and requirements of the nation at large. Ultimately, the nation will have to look at a dedicated law on online gaming.
Indeed, and with these baby steps and draft amendments in the IT rules, we will surely achieve a better and strengthened provisional law to fight against these frauds. So thank you so much, Mr. Duggal, for joining us today in this conversation. It was indeed a very insightful discussion with you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being with you on your show. Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on proposed amendments to IT Rules 2021. The participants were Pawan Duggal, IT and Cyber Expert, and Omvesh Upadhyay, AIR Correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on a mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on a YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.